Hey everyone, I want to welcome you to the latest in our series of thought leadership conversations hosted by NovusNorth, where we talk with leaders about all things digital, experience, and financial services. I'm Dave Cowling, CEO at NovusNorth, and today we've got the great fortune to be speaking with Jason Fields, Chief Strategy Officer at Voicify and a leader in the space of voice and conversational AI. Hey Jason, thank you for joining us today. Could you share a little bit about yourself and Voicify?
Yeah, sure. I'm Jason. I am the Chief Strategy Officer with Voicify, which is a conversational AI platform that enables brands to, sort of in its simplest form, create their own version of Alexa or Google Assistant that they can own and manage in their own digital environments, which means they have complete control over it. They have all the rights to all of the analytics and data, which is really important these days. Um, I came to Voicify after spending about 15 to 20 years in the digital agency space. So I was doing a lot of digital transformation and strategy work for Fortune 1000 and definitely saw a gap in the market around voice and how businesses were empowered to manage them. And so that's where Voicify came from.
Fabulous. No, and definitely filling a really interesting part of the experience spectrum and a needed part. And for companies that haven't yet adopted voice as part of their strategy for interacting with their customers, it's time to take a look, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So maybe to kind of get us started, there's been an explosion of discussion and activity with the release of ChatGPT and the subsequent, flurry of AI announcements. How would you describe voice and conversational AI, and kind of what's the difference between conversational AI and ChatGPT?
Yeah, it's a really good question and an important one because I think the sort of shiny silver object nature of ChatGPT right now has got a lot of people thinking that it's a silver bullet. And in fact, it does have some challenges to come with it. So the main differences between conversational AI and ChatGPT is conversational AI should be trained on a very specific domain of information. And what happens with ChatGPT, the generative AI, is that it takes billions and billions and billions of data points and pieces of information, and then it essentially anticipates what's going to be asked next in a back and forth, a text-based back and forth. Um, it's a really powerful tool. I'm using it every day for a variety of things. It's certainly a more effective way of learning new things rather than having to use Google search and then curate all of the content yourself and figure out what is and what isn't relevant, which can take a lot of time. But the nuance of ChatGPT is that it's not really ready for an unsupervised runtime experience. And what I mean by that is you would never want to put a generative AI tool like ChatGPT directly in front of your customer and expect it to be right all the time, or even be contextually accurate. And the reason is because you don't have control over that. So with conversational AI platforms like Voicify, there is a sort of hybrid responsibility between the artificial intelligence and a human resource that manages the training of that AI. When you log into ChatGPT, you should notice that one of the sort of columns of introductory language they give you is a warning that ChatGPT is not always accurate and in fact could be harmful or dangerous in the information it gives back, right? And there's not a lot of enterprises that I deal with, no enterprises I deal with, that are willing to accept that risk. So we're seeing, and we actually integrate with ChatGPT and other generative AI platforms. That tool is really useful for the creative process. It's a helpful way of generating very specific content, but it needs to be reviewed, curated, and approved as part of the training model against a specific AI, and that's what Voicify does.
And I definitely love that sort of separation of how curated that experience is, and certainly the risk side. I know of no organization that wants to sort of open up an unfettered, you know, highly risky conversation with a customer that they can't manage at the end of the day. That's fabulous. I guess, maybe pivoting a little bit, a lot of people today think about checking the weather or ordering dog food via Siri or Alexa. But voice is so much more. It's come a long way. What are some of the more compelling use cases you've seen for voice?
Yeah, I think Siri and Google Assistant and Alexa all did a really good job of laying a strong foundation of training with human beings about what was possible. And so a lot of people are still used to those really rudimentary use cases, and some of them are very useful. Turning up the thermostat, turning down the volume; these are helpful things as you're walking around your house or in your vehicle, even. Um, but the business value and the customer value has accelerated sort of well beyond the capability of those sort of domain specific tools. A couple that come to mind are Houston Methodist in Texas is actually implementing a voice assistant in their surgical theaters. And that is to certainly play into a sterility need that those environments demand. When you speak to a voice assistant or are prompted from a voice assistant to perhaps go through a series of processes and protocols, or to take notes, or to confirm that certain steps have been done, you're necessarily not touching things, which is really important when you've got somebody open on the table. They've extended that use case actually into patient rooms where the assistant can be present on a mobile device of some kind, tablet, computer, phone, where the assistant can be helpful in conversations between doctors and patients, both at a very rudimentary level, taking notes, but also in a very helpful way of surfacing information that the parties are speaking about that might be helpful or relevant in ensuring accuracy of information or accuracy of comprehension by both parties. Obviously, in that latter one, it needs to be opted into by the patient, but a really great use case in sort of a non-traditional consumer area. One of the other ones that comes to mind is actually a client of ours, a company called Odyssey. Um, they're the second largest radio station owner in the United States, and they launched as part of a rebrand a new mobile app about 9 months ago or so, and they put a voice assistant as part of their user interface in the mobile app. And what this allows them to do is dramatically cut down on the visual interface demands, cognitive demands on the user in order to tap and swipe and click through the interface to get to what they're trying to listen to or find out about. Instead, they can use their voice to drill down very specifically to what they're looking for, and the assistant executes on their behalf in the app to bring them that information. And then another one that sort of more of a business use case, and I can't use brand names in this one, but a number of Fortune 500 companies who have warehouse operations are seeing a real benefit in bringing a voice assistant into those warehouse environments where their workers are typically carrying around some sort of mobile tablet or mobile device in order to manage information back and forth to the back end systems that could be doing things from arranging pickup orders from workers, organizing delivery schedules of trucks into the warehouse, or simply surfacing information to managers. The combination of a few technologies, voice user interface, conversational AI, even NFC and augmented reality with visual capabilities, is bringing a much safer work environment. The business case for these organizations is pretty straightforward. If you can decrease the number of accidents that happen in that environment, your insurance premiums go down, and that's a real cost when you're working at scale with warehouses all over the globe.
Yeah, these are fabulous, and I really love you know, certainly there's a lot of consumer applications, but looking at these institutional applications of voice and how they can help companies either drive increased efficiencies or some of these other, that warehouse case and driving reduced accidents is a fabulous one and important in that domain. It's interesting when I look at kind of financial services and, I see some of the potential problems this could solve based on some of your descriptions. I think certainly customer service and in call centers and looking at how you can handle, dealing with kind of the labor shortages and this trend, kind of this always on trend where consumers and businesses expect 24/7 access. Voice would be a fantastic way to both meet some of the labor shortage needs as well as the that other stress of the always on expectation. Um, Similarly, I could see in kind of the wealth management space where you've got financial advisors that have, expertise and access to a lot of data on their customers' accounts and investments, being able to provide deeper access and maybe easier access than a traditional web or mobile app might provide. So you could ask questions and drive analysis. What's my exposure to a particular industry in my portfolio? Um, Without having to kind of navigate or expect uh, uh, prepackaged report. So I love kind of where this is going and how it can drive business advantage across domains.
Yeah, I think some of the same patterns that we see with the big boys of Alexa, Google, and Siri, or Apple, putting their voice assistants in market to do general training to society on how they can be used. I think you're also now seeing with like B of A and Wells Fargo, and I think US Bank actually has one as well. They're doing a lot of use of voice UI and conversational AI with their consumer banking applications. Well, what they're doing, whether consciously or not, is they're training a big swath of their consumer base about this capability. And as those consumers grow older, acquire more wealth, their expectation is not going to dwindle that this capability should follow them into those maybe smaller but more intimate experiences with their financial services organization. Um, there's also a huge advantage for FinServ when you consider how significant the market opportunity is for people with disabilities or accessibility issues. There's like 29, if I get my numbers right, there's like 29 million underbanked or unbanked people in our country alone that have a difficult time engaging with mobile apps, websites, and aren't comfortable going into the branch because of their disability or accessibility issue. And bringing a voice user interface and conversational AI into digital tools that are already available to them can make them more comfortable with engaging. So it's a real market opportunity for that space as well.
And I love the way you sort of position that. A lot of people think of accessibility as addressing, at least in financial services, as addressing regulatory requirements or better serving existing customers, both of which are important. But with those numbers that you're talking about, the ability to kind of extend and broaden your market is huge. These are people that need or want services, so figuring out the right channels and the right products to get to them, um, great opportunity. I hope some people that listen are thinking about that. So maybe a little bit of a shift here, right? We've seen this across all of the big sort of evolutionary shifts in technology that it brings disruption. What do you see as some of the likely avenues for this disruption, and what is the impact on companies that haven't really got started?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious advantage to bringing conversational AI into any space, and FinServ specifically, is the ability to bring a multimodal experience to light. And uh, accessibility can be a feel good reason, but a lot of research has been done that shows that people who don't fall into that accessibility spectrum also benefit and actually prefer to be able to engage with their brands in a number of different ways. And right now, by and large, through web and mobile, and even kiosk is rising in sort of in-person experiences. You're limited to a visual screen that you have to manage and deal with. And although I think that the practice of user experience and user interface has grown leaps and bounds in the last 20 years from when I first started in technology, at the end of the day, you are still depending on the end user to be able to understand and comprehend the navigation and management interface that somebody else put together for them. When you bring voice UI and conversational AI as a companion interface to the existing visual interface, thus creating a multimodal experience, what you're saying to your base is we're here not just to try to make things easier the way we think about things. We're here to actually make things easier based on how you think about things. And that's not only a really important message to tell the markets, it's also a really easy way to gain stronger brand affinity. So I think what you'll see is from an ease of use standpoint, companies like B of A, Wells Fargo, um, specifically in the FinServ space, are generating a competitive moat that over time is going to be very difficult for other organizations to narrow.
That's really interesting, and I think the notion of one, sort of multiple modalities, but also two, kind of the optionality, so their customers can go and use the modality that's most natural for them, and sort of have that option. And I do think that, if I go back to something you said earlier, this notion of training, we as a society are kind of going through the sort of training curve, like we did with the internet and mobile, et cetera, on how to use this. And this is gonna, as our skills grow, it's only going to climb, and the companies that are there early will have a distinct advantage in offering those capabilities and knowing how to offer them. It kind of begs maybe the next question, which is for those companies that haven't gotten started with voice, how do they get started? What should their strategy be?
It's really not that far off from probably what a lot of the existing analysts would already do. But because it's a newer technology, I think brands fall into the novelty category of technology much more quickly. Novelty is not necessarily a wrong place to start, but it typically doesn't have legs. So we recommend to all of our prospects and customers, if they aren't already speaking to us about a very specific pain point in the customer journey or in the business where conversational AI might be applicable, that they figure that out. It is not a requirement that conversational AI be responsible for the entirety of a customer experience. It can be pinpointed specifically against a challenge that the customers are having with your brand or the brand's having the other way around. It's I like this analogy of likening a voice assistant to a full-time hire. You would never hire one person to solve many business problems. If you did, they'd be very special and command a great deal of salary. Typically, they're responsible for a pretty fenced in set of responsibilities. And the same can be true of a voice assistant. And so we half jokingly tell a lot of our customers to write a job description for the voice assistant. It's important not just to identify what it will do, manages expectations with the customers. It manages expectations internally because you're going to have a lot of senior stakeholders that want to boil the ocean and see it do everything. But it also gives you a very specific runway of what initial responsibilities should be and what they should not be. And that's really important, I think, with any technology that has the promise and allure of being responsible for so much, but really is more powerful when pointed at a specific moment or series of moments in a customer experience that can be positively impacted.
No, I think that's fantastic advice, both focusing on a specific problem that'll drive results to gain that momentum, and then two, and haven't heard other people talk about technology this way, but writing a job description of what you expect voice to do for you, that's a very tactical, tangible way to approach it. Well, Jason, thank you so much. This has been a fabulous discussion, and we appreciate you sharing with our audience voice and conversational AI. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me on.